Right now at 6, new delays for some Portland families.
I don't know if I want my kids to be in a school that has construction.
Why that's not the only hurdle for a high school parents say desperately needs an upgrade. Plus, a surprise announcement to do with the future of the Portland Police.
Would you stay on beyond June of 25 if asked?
Then, how a restaurant owner is pushing back after he says the Rose City made a big stink.
The Foods of his culture shut down his business because somebody complained. So I think he's just kind of struggling with that.
And later, Rip City tips off in its final home game and sets its sights firmly on the future.
Thanks so much for joining us this Friday. I'm David Molko. We begin at 6 with costs spiking to rebuild one of the oldest high schools in Oregon's biggest school district. We're talking about Jefferson High in the Albina neighborhood, and now it also sounds like the timeline is being pushed back. Thomas Schultz is here. Thomas, this impacts hundreds of families. What are you learning?
Well, David, the new school is now going to cost more than $400 million, and it'll take longer than expected to build.
Whatever needs to be done, Jefferson needs to be rebuilt.
Gina Levine has 2 elementary schoolers in Portland Public, and for years she's waited on Jefferson to be rebuilt with the hope that one day her kids would go there.
But I don't know if I want my kids to be in a school that has construction.
And now construction isn't set to begin until 2025, and it'll be finished in 2029, 2 years later than originally planned.
Having another delay and then having a 4-year building time period, that just seems off to me.
It'll cost a whole lot more too. At a recent school board meeting, a design firm said it will cost more than $400 million to rebuild the school, $125 million more than the project's currently funded for. A Portland Public spokesperson says the rest of the money will have to come from future bond measures. Jefferson is last in line for a rebuild after schools like McDaniel, Grant, and Lincoln underwent changes years ago. Lincoln cost $245 million to rebuild, and the higher price tag is due to higher costs.
We know that inflation is driving up costs.
And Jefferson enrollment is dwindling. Last year, around 600 kids attended the school, the lowest enrollment of any Portland public high school. Though a rebuilt Jefferson could hold 1,700 kids.
I'm looking down 20 years when we have a fully enrolled high school with people thriving.
Some of those kids could come through redistricting.
We're going to be drawing boundaries for hundreds of households in order to fill Jefferson.
With the hope of restoring Jefferson to a premier school for thousands. Though for now, families wait.
It doesn't make sense to me why Jeff is taking so long.
And there's concerns over students' education, too, and whether those kids that are learning will be impacted during the 4 years of construction. Bear in mind, David, they'll remain on campus.
Yeah, this is interesting because this is the school where they were going to send students away, and then the district essentially did a 180 because parents pushed back. So we will see what happens here.
Yep.
Thank you, Thomas.
Updated.
You bet. All right, in tonight's headlines, police are investigating a deadly shooting in Portland's East Columbia neighborhood. Authorities say a man was killed around 12:30 this afternoon near MLK and Gertz Road. This is an industrial area with many RVs parked on the side of the street. There's no word yet on a motive, and so far police have not made any arrests. In Salem, one person has died and another is in the hospital after 2 vehicles crashed. This was before 11 last night at the intersection of Kubler Boulevard and Battle Creek Road. Investigators say a Honda traveling east turned in front of a Mercedes headed westbound. The crash killed the Honda driver, 22-year-old David Luna. The other driver is expected to survive. A nearby utility box was also damaged, knocking out power to the area. Well, an update on a relatively new and deadly flesh-eating drug making its way across the Pacific Northwest. Several people have now died in Multnomah County from an overdose involving tranq, or xylazine, that is an animal tranquilizer. It's often mixed with fentanyl. We found people don't always know that they're taking it. County Health Department data shows one person died from an overdose involving tranq and fentanyl in 2022. 5 people died in 2023. So far this year, there are no confirmed deaths involving tranq. The county continues to test for it and is working to get the word out. In Beaverton, Washington County deputies are looking for a suspect they say tried to lure a student outside of Stoller Middle School. This is around 5:20 Thursday afternoon while the student was walking home after visiting friends. Authorities say the man claimed he was a friend of the child's mother and was there to pick the student up. The child immediately ran away and got home safely. The sheriff's office describing the suspect as a man in his 70s with a white beard and wearing sunglasses, a t-shirt, and a hat with an American flag. At the time, he was also driving a silver Mercedes SUV. If you saw anything or recognized that description, please call the Washington County Sheriff's Office. And there are some new developments this evening surrounding Measure 114. That is Oregon's voter-approved measure to bring stricter gun laws to the state. According to the Oregonian, the Oregon Court of Appeals declined to allow it to go into effect while it reviews a ruling on the measure. 114 has been tied up in the courts and remains essentially on hold. The state is appealing a ruling by a Harney County judge that determined 114 was unconstitutional and argued it should be allowed to go into effect in the meantime. The Court of Appeals there denying that, but did agree to fast track its decision on the state's appeal. Matt?
A beautiful day at the Oregon coast. I mean, look at the folks out there on the beach enjoying late afternoon sun. There will be a great sunset at the beach, of course, later on this evening with the clouds that are clearing there. So just fantastic. And you know what? The clouds are thinning here in the valleys. This is the Reserve Golf Course. It's still some cloud out there, but I can see blue sky out the window. 67 degrees right now. If you look at the satellite imagery, though, you see a bunch of cloud moving south to north, especially in eastern Oregon, and not just moving, but developing. We've had some strong thunderstorms over that way, potentially producing half-inch diameter hail and 50-mile-an-hour wind gusts. They're beginning to settle down now, but you can see on Doppler radar, a lot of lightning with these storms. They've been producing some pretty good rain, about 2/3 of an inch at Crane Prairie. East of Sumter, we had about 1/3 of an inch. Baker City has had about 1/1500 of an inch, but there's more falling right now. So we'll continue to track those storms, and the potential will be there again for tomorrow. In fact, over a more widespread area from central Oregon out through northeast Oregon for afternoon and evening thunderstorms. The western valleys, though, should remain thunderstorm and shower free, although we could get some clouds drifting our way from those storms in the afternoon. But it's going to be a sunny and warm weekend with temperatures climbing into the 70s. We'll continue to track those Cascade storms and the cool down coming our way next week, David.
Yeah, a lot to keep an eye on. Thank you, Matt. That is the sound of SWAT teams in action in Hillsborough, where they took a man into custody after a 6-hour standoff. Police say the suspect barricaded himself inside a home, and investigators think he may have had a gun. Ashley Grams with that story.
They blocked off that intersection over there.
This is the Washington County Sheriff's Office.
Them using the microphone saying,
"We have a search warrant."
Got the dog, you kind of see the sniper on the ground.
A man barricaded himself inside a home near the intersection of 7th and Washington in Hillsborough.
It's definitely nerve-wracking because, you know, this is just something you don't see here very often in Hillsborough.
The Washington County Sheriff's Office saying there are warrants out for his arrest and he may have a gun.
I thought I saw something over there. Yeah, I saw like a...
If you do not comply, you'll be subjected to the use of chemical agents.
The tactical team eventually using tear gas to force the man outside. About 6 hours after the standoff started, the suspect was taken away in handcuffs around 9 in the morning.
Wild day to start a Friday morning.
Ashley Grams, KGW News.
Yeah, no injuries there. We have an update this evening on the Northeast Portland Vietnamese restaurant and the owner who says he was forced to close after anonymous complaints about the smell. Now he's planning to sue the city of Portland and accusing it of discrimination. Sydney Dorner spoke with his lawyer. So Sydney, what'd she tell you?
David, the lawyer representing Eddie Dong says before Fogabo, the city rarely, if ever, enforced this odor code, especially to the extent they did with Dong, who was hit with thousands in fines. They sent this tort claim not only because they felt the city's enforcement was overzealous, but also to get answers on how Eddie can get back to work.
The foods of his culture shut down his business because somebody complained. So I think he's just kind of struggling with that.
Julie Parrish describing the disappointment of her client, Eddie Dong, the owner of Pho Gabo, a Vietnamese restaurant in Northeast Portland. His business closed down 3 months ago. An anonymous complaint about odor in 2022 led to 2 years of inspections and fines due to an odor code violation.
The way it's crafted is that it's really subjective based on the olfactory sense of one inspector. So the inspector can come out, smell around and say, this restaurant is or isn't in compliance.
Parrish says Dong tried his best to make changes, even grilling meat at a separate location and hiring professional cleaners to scrub out the filtration system. But none of those methods worked for the city, which eventually asked Dong to invest in a $40,000 air filtration system. If not, they would continue to inspect and issue fines.
They couldn't guarantee that they wouldn't come back and they wouldn't inspect further, even if he went to those extraordinary measures.
So on February 3rd, Dong shut his doors, now in financial limbo due to debt from city fines and putting his lease in default. He wants answers from the city. He's planning to sue the city of Portland. In the tort claim, Dong says he faced both economic and non-economic damages like emotional distress and the loss of community that he built as a Vietnamese restaurant. Parrish says the goal is to bring the city to the table and figure out how Dong can get back in business.
He'd love to be able to be out from under everything he has going on and consider where he could set back up and continue to serve the community that he spent years building.
Now, we reached out to the city and they said they couldn't comment on pending litigation. City Commissioner Carmen Rubio put an immediate pause on the odor code last month. She says she is concerned about the negative impacts of the policy and wants to see the code change as soon as possible. David, back to you.
Yeah, we'll see if they can work out some sort of deal here. Thank you, Sydney. Straight ahead at 6, a surprise announcement from City Hall, what it all means for the man at the helm of the Portland Police. And we're live at Moda for the final Blazers home game of the season, plus playoff hockey creating a bit of a buzz in the sunshine this Friday in the Rose Court.